They chained his leg. He smiled, not because he was mad, not because he had given up, but because he had discovered something his master could never take from him, no matter how tight the iron. You have felt the opposite of this. The knot in your stomach before you send the message. The way your chest tightens when someone frowns at you. The nights you lie awake replaying what someone might think tomorrow. Fear runs most people's lives from the shadows, quietly, every single day. But this man, a slave who owned nothing, lived more freely than the emperor who ruled the world. How? That is the question. And the answer is a 3-step code so simple it sounds like a trick until you understand what it actually demands of you. Let me take you back. Rome. 1st century. A boy is born into slavery. He has no name of his own. The word we call him, Epictetus, simply means acquired, property, a thing that was bought. He belonged to a wealthy, cruel man named Epictetus, who himself had once been a slave and clawed his way into the emperor's inner circle. And there is a story about this master that historians still repeat, a story that should have destroyed the boy. One day, for reasons lost to time, cruelty, boredom, rage, the master began to twist Epictetus's leg, slowly, deliberately. And here is where it gets strange. The boy did not scream. He did not beg. He looked at his master, calm as still water, and said quietly, "If you keep twisting, you're going to break it." The master kept twisting. The bone snapped, and Epictetus, without anger, without tears, simply said, "There, I told you it would break." He was lame for the rest of his life. He walked with pain until the day he died. But listen closely, because this is the part almost no one understands. That broken leg was not the tragedy of his life. It was the beginning of his freedom. Because in that moment, a strange truth had opened inside him. His master could own his body, could break his bones, could sell him, beat him, starve him. But there was one territory the master could never enter, one room with a door only Epictetus held the key to. And what he found in that room would one day set thousands of men free, including perhaps you. But to understand what he found, you have to understand what he lost first. Think about your own life for a moment. Really think. How much of your day is spent reacting? Someone cuts you off in traffic and your whole morning curdles. A coworker says something sharp and you carry it home like a stone in your pocket. You check your phone, see no reply, and your mind writes an entire tragedy in the silence. You are, in a very real sense, a slave. Not to a man with a whip, to something quieter, to your own reactions, to the opinions of people who are not even thinking about you, to a future that has not happened and may never happen. And here is the uncomfortable truth Epictetus stared directly into. Most of your suffering is not caused by events. It is caused by your judgments about events. The broken leg hurt. That was real. But the rage, the humiliation, the story of "this should not be happening to me," that was optional. That was the part he refused to pick up. Eventually, Epictetus was granted his freedom, and a freed slave in Rome could do almost anything: chase money, chase status, chase revenge on the world that had chained him. He did none of that. Instead, he became a teacher. He gathered students in a plain room, sat on a plain chair, his ruined legs stretched out in front of him, and he began to hand them the key he had found. But then, Rome turned on him. The Emperor Domitian, paranoid and afraid of anyone who could make men think for themselves, banished every philosopher from the city. Epictetus was driven out, exiled, homeless again, forced to start over in a foreign land with nothing. And this is the moment that should stop you cold. Because a man who had finally clawed his way to freedom, to respect, to a life of his own, had it all ripped away a second time. If anyone had a right to break, to rage against the sky, it was him. Instead, he built his entire philosophy on the exact thing that had just happened to him. And it begins with the first step of the code. Step 1. Divide the world in two. Epictetus said there are only two categories of things in all of existence: things that are up to you and things that are not up to you. That sounds obvious. It is not, because almost everyone spends their entire life pouring their energy, their peace, their sleep into the second category, the things they cannot control. What is not up to you? The weather, the economy, what other people think of you, whether you get the job, whether someone loves you back, whether your body stays young, whether the past had gone differently, whether that message gets a reply. And what is up to you? A shockingly short list: your judgments, your choices, your effort, your response, what you do with this exact moment. That is it. That is the whole territory you actually rule. Now watch what happens when you get this wrong. You stake your happiness on the reply that never comes. You bet your peace on the promotion someone else decides. You hand the keys to your mood to a stranger in traffic. You have made your inner life a hostage to things you were never given the power to command. Of course you are afraid. Of course you are anxious. You are trying to control an ocean with your bare hands. Epictetus put it in words that landed like a blade. Men are disturbed not by things, but by their opinions about things. The event is neutral, the exile, the broken leg, the silence on the phone. It is your judgment. This is terrible. This should not be. I cannot bear it. That creates the suffering. And your judgment is in the first category. It is up to you. Which brings us to step 2. And this is where modern science finally caught up to a lame slave from 2,000 years ago. Step 2. Catch the judgment before it becomes you. Between what happens to you and how you feel about it, there is a gap, a tiny, almost invisible gap. Something happens, and then, a fraction of a second later, your mind slaps a label on it. Good, bad, threat, insult, disaster. Most people never see the gap. The event and the judgment feel like the same thing. The frown feels like rejection. The traffic feels like an attack. But they are not the same, and in that gap lives your entire freedom. Here is the strange part. In the 1950s, a psychologist named Albert Ellis was trying to help patients who had been in therapy for years with no results. He stumbled onto something. He realized his patients were not disturbed by their circumstances. They were disturbed by their beliefs about their circumstances. Change the belief, and the suffering dissolved. He built an entire school of therapy on this. It became the foundation of what we now call cognitive behavioral therapy, the most scientifically validated form of psychological treatment on Earth. And Ellis said it openly. He got the core idea from Epictetus. Let that settle. The cutting edge of modern psychology is, at its root, the teaching of a Roman slave. So how did Epictetus train the gap? He watched his own mind like a hawk. Every time a violent judgment rose up, this is a catastrophe. He learned to pause and say to it, "You are just an impression. You are not the thing you claim to be." He called it examining your impressions. A thought arrives, dressed up as absolute truth, and instead of swallowing it whole, you stop it at the door and ask, is this actually true, or is this just a story my fear is telling me? 9 times out of 10, it is a story. Think about the last thing that kept you awake. Play it back. How much of it actually happened, and how much of it was your mind, in the dark, running a horror film about a future that will almost certainly never arrive? Which brings us to the final step, the one that turns understanding into freedom. Step 3. Choose your response and act. Dividing the world is not enough. Catching the judgment is not enough, because insight without action is just a more sophisticated form of paralysis. The final move is to take the one thing that is up to you, your response, and use it fully right now. Someone insults you. The event is not up to you. Your judgment, "I am not going to pick this up," is. Your response, to stay calm, to speak plainly, to walk away with your dignity intact, is. That is where Epictetus lived, in the response. This is how a man in chains was freer than an emperor. The emperor was ruled by everything, by fear of assassination, by the mob, by his own appetites. Epictetus was ruled by nothing outside the small, unbreakable kingdom of his own choices. So here is what the opening question was really asking. How did a slave live in total freedom? Not by escaping his chains, by realizing the chains never touched the part of him that mattered. Now let me give you something you can actually do tonight. It is simple. It is not easy. Take out a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle. On the left, write every single thing weighing on you right now. Every fear, every worry, every resentment. Empty the whole load onto the page. Then, on the right, sort each one. Is this up to me or not up to me? Be brutally honest. Everything that is not up to you, the opinions, the outcomes, the past, the reply, You practice setting it down, not because you do not care, because carrying it changes nothing and costs you everything, and everything that is up to you. Your next choice, your next word, your next action. That is where you pour all of it, all your energy, all your fire. Do this once, and it is an exercise. Do this every night, and it becomes who you are. Here is the truth Epictetus would leave you with. You will never control what happens to you. You were never meant to, but you are the sole ruler of what you do next. And no one, no emperor, no critic, no fear can ever take that throne from you unless you hand it over. The leg breaks. You decide what it means. So tonight, before you sleep, ask yourself one thing. What have you been carrying that was never yours to carry? If this reached something in you, stay a while, subscribe, and let's keep walking this path together, because freedom, it turns out, was never out there. It was always one choice away.